Julia Paul reporting. Well, difficult as it might be for people of a certain generation to imagine a world without the rustle of newsprint, there are plenty of prophets of doom foreseeing that world in the not-too-distant future. So can the hard copy be saved? With me, Irish News' Noel Doran, Alan Mibben, who practices in the expanding blogosphere, and Tony Axon, who's a media analyst. All welcome to Hearts and Minds. Noel Doran, do you lie awake at night wondering how you're going to arrest the decline of newspapers?
Lots of things keep me awake at night, Noel, but I do think newspapers can not only survive but prosper in a changing world. We have to accept that there's less people out there reading newspapers, but there's less people out there watching mainstream television channels. There are less people going out to vote. So there are social changes there which we have to cope with. There are less people reading the Irish News than there were 5 years ago. There's more people reading it than 25 years ago. So we will have to deal with change, but we've got a very loyal audience. Most of the newspapers in this part of the world do. Newspapers hold a special role in people's affections, but also have a very definitive role to play in terms of examining the news agenda, examining features, looking at sport and business in a way in which other areas are not necessarily equipped to do. So I think there always will be that special newspaper moment for people in the course of the day. It may be an increasingly mature readership, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but people will turn to a newspaper. They may not have as much time as they did previously. Some of the economics of newspapers will clearly have to change. But people have been predicting the demise of newspapers since the wireless was invented. We're still hanging on, and hopefully we will do for a little while.
Do you think, Tony Axon, that the industry has a plan?
Yes, I do. And it's a matter of Noel referred to the role for newspapers, and that's what the publishers have to work out, is what their role is going to be going forward. I'm confident there is a role for print, but you've got to work out what it's going to be, what it's going to contribute, and where does it fit into the readers' lives. But I'm confident they can do that.
But in a world of digital media, with mobile platforms, whatever they are, getting more and more important, where is that newspaper moment going to be, do you think?
I think it's going to be in breadth and depth. If you look at the newspapers today, our local newspapers, Irish News included, there are stories there which maybe didn't even touch in terms of headlines last night on broadcast media, but are there in detail in print this morning, like car parking charges, explained in great detail of several of the papers today, and I think that's an add-on that readers will want. So I think the online and the breaking news developments could actually be harnessed to drive people to print the next day, which is a change round from where we've been before.
Alan, do you think these men are dinosaurs?
No, I think we all kind of work in the same kind of ecosystem. There's a certain amount of bloggers rely on newsprint in the same way they rely on radio and TV as well, to talk about and to commentate on what other people are saying. And the other way around, some of the stories that come up on blogs first will then be picked up by journalists who have, say, more time to actually develop a story and look into it. And it's surprising some of the things that will appear in my blog or in Slugger O'Toole and actually will make it into the newspapers or into radio programmes within a couple of days, and actually develop into a proper story with a bit more detail and a bit more rigour.
One of the elements is trust, of course. I mean, the great institutions from the New York Times, the Irish Times, the Irish News, Belfast Telegraph, the Newsletter, these are institutions which people trusted. How do people, or how can people trust a blogger?
I think trust is earned. It's over time, either by reputation or by just the quality of what you do and the fact that it chimes with people, they agree with it, and then they start to trust. And if other, within blogs, a lot of people tend to refer to each other, and that builds a kind of a network of trust and a network of kind of accountability to each other as well. And people online are very quick to say that that's rubbish or that's wrong, and it's very fast for them to actually comment back. Slightly harder for a newspaper to be critiqued, except maybe in the letters page.
How much of an eye do you keep on the blogs, and how much do you think there is a natural matching of interests?
We do our level best, and certainly I spend a lot of time going through different websites. As, you know, I see Alan's blogs, and they have a credibility because they're researched and because he takes a lot of care and attention in what he does. Not everybody does, and there is a contrast there with newspapers. But we have a lot to learn from the instant opinions which are out there. But the more reflective approach is also very important to us among our columnists, among our news reporters. And I think also newspapers still do set the agenda in many ways. I mean, the broadcasters will follow up many stories stories which first appear in newspapers, some of the things which we do in terms of, I suppose, particularly health, particularly education, particularly security, and of course sport as well, are going to be followed up, are going to form the basis for a wider debate. I think that's a very important role that newspapers have to play, and I think we'll continue to do so. But things are changing. We will look at what other people are doing, and hopefully we will learn from that. Maybe they learn a little from us along the way as well.
Newspapers have to make money, Tony, of course. That's what they are, primarily, money-making machines. And someone talked about the three-legged stool that supported the newspaper industry. That was advertising, circulation and cheap paper. Now that is becoming a mono-stool very quickly, isn't it?
It is, yeah. All of those things are under pressure, but I think you've hit on it with the word credibility. You know, the printed word in a reputable newspaper still has the lead on credibility. And the undoing of blogging and social networking will be its lack of credibility. And there's been a number of mistakes and erroneous reports online which are undermining the credibility of that medium. And newspapers have got to play into that. You know, if you want the real story, the inside track, the credible approach, it's going to be in print. And to me, that's what the publishers have to grab.
But I mean, I suspect that old media and new media all make mistakes, and even in this island, in the last year, we can point to many examples.
Yes, but a newspaper is accountable when it makes a mistake. A blogger isn't.
A blogger is accountable to the same kind of defamation laws and libel and so on. So, I mean, we can get caught that way. We can also get caught just looking really stupid, and that affects your reputation. I think the one thing that probably all of us in different types of media are very conscious of is that being local is important, actually connecting with community. It's something newspapers, particularly on a weekly basis, do very well around Northern Ireland. It's something that bloggers can do quite well if they come from a community and actually talk about it. And I think that's probably where a lot of the trust and some of the reputation and, again, some of the future comes from, being a trusted source of stuff.
But let's go back, Tony, to this issue of money. Newspapers have to make money. How can they make money in a digital age?
Well, as they move into the digital age, we're going to have to find a way of making online pay for itself. You know, the Daily Mail Group has just announced £10 million profits from its Mail Online service, the biggest in the world. The other newspapers are going to have to do the same. You've got to make online pay. As Google would say, you've got to monetize it every time somebody calls in on it.
And how are you progressing with that?
Well, we have a subscription model for our website, which we're examining, and we may well move forward. But I think we also recognise that while there is an enormous audience online, it tends to be very brief and fleeting and jumping from one side to another. The figures show very clearly that people read newspapers for much longer than they stay with a particular website, which is attractive to advertisers, but is also great for journalists. It gives you a chance to look at it in more depth. Newspapers will have to find a way of coming to terms with the online operations and finding a way to make some money out of it. But there is still a profitable future for newspapers. There is a credibility for newspapers. And I think newspapers will hopefully have a role to play for many years to come.
Gentlemen, it's a fascinating subject. Thank you very much indeed.